Okay. Welcome. Thank you for coming this afternoon. I'm the co-founder of a national cycling education program that was founded right in Orlando, Florida, called Cycling Savvy, where we teach traffic skills, but we teach them in a unique way, and I'm going to talk a little bit about that. But what I want to start with is we're here to talk about safety. I want to talk about setting safety into a larger vision. First of all, in a livable community, as a person who uses a bicycle for my primary mode of transportation, I view a livable community as a place that supports me as a bicyclist, and I'm expected on the road, I'm respected on the road, and I'm considered normal in the transportation mix. Now, to achieve that on a broader scale in our culture, we have to rediscover some lost truths, because along the way, we have adopted some beliefs that are not really supportive of respecting bicyclists as part of transportation. One is that streets are for people. They always have been, and they still are, but many people don't understand it that way. Bicyclists have the same rights and responsibilities as drivers. That's another thing that a lot of people don't understand. On both sides, the bicyclists also don't understand this. Bicycling is inherently safe. And this seems like an odd thing to say when we're talking about how dangerous bicycling is here in Florida. But bicycling safety, and all safety, is a product of behavior. And when we recognize that, and then we recognize the assets that bicycling gives us, the fact that we travel at the speed of human perception, we can react to things very easily. The fact that we have 360-degree perception, we can hear, we can see, we don't have blind spots. This actually makes bicycling incredibly safe. The problem that we have is bicyclist behavior. And when we look at the actual crash causes in the statistics, what we have is we can identify the behaviors that led to the crashes. And the problem here is that we don't have just a lack of information in our culture. What we have is a complete inversion of information in our culture. We have people that believe things are safe that just are the opposite of what's safe. And so as a result, we view behaviors that increase risk as being safe. Hugging the edge of the road. This guy's so close to those parked cars, if he was any closer, he'd be inside them. That is not a safe way to ride. And at the same time, we view behaviors that mitigate risk, taking your place out in the queue of traffic, as being unsafe, and that's because they're not normal. They're not seen every day, and so we think they're unsafe. And even worse, many people believe they're rude. And this is a huge inhibitor of safe behavior. So how do we get here? How do we get so upside down? Well, I'm sure most of you saw Peter Norton. I've read his book. I wasn't here for the presentation. But somewhere between here and here, we lost our way. And Peter would have talked about the great reframing, how we reframed safety from speeding vehicles being viewed as unsafe to people in the street being viewed as unsafe. And what came with that was a propaganda campaign that's lasted generations. We've had 90 years of get out of the street or we'll kill you. The message in this children's coloring book is streets are for cars and the street is dangerous at all times. Now, is that mythology or what? I mean, the street is not dangerous. The street is just pavement. And here's a bicycling safety booklet in which the message is don't take chances. And there's not a single crash countermeasure in this book. This book is all about don't do this or this bad thing will happen, and there's not anything to tell you what you should do. So here's an example from the book. The bicyclist hits a pothole, crashes, and the motorist can't stop in time and runs him over. Now, I don't know about you, but that's not how I understand due care. So now we have transposed this set of beliefs upon the truths. That streets are for cars. It's not true, but we believe that. That people have to stay out of the way or they'll get killed. It's not true, but we believe that. And that there's a right of speed now that governs the roadway. And if you can't keep up, you can't be on the road. And that's not true either. So the problem with these bad beliefs is that bad beliefs are the driving factor in unsuccessful behavior, crash-causing behavior. And bicycling seems dangerous because of the predominance of unsuccessful behavior. So if I believe that streets are for cars, then the rules are for cars too, and I don't have to stop at stop signs and red lights. And we see a lot of that, and there are a lot of bicyclists who honestly believe that. If the system doesn't support me, I'll just do whatever. I operate outside the system. I'm not a pedestrian, I'm not a driver, and so I'll just, go wherever I want. People who operate on the edges in pedestrian space with their bicyclists become reactive because they're constantly suffering conflicts because they're irrelevant, and so they're always in the path of turning drivers. But the other side of that is that they're unpredictable too. So the driver has an experience with this as well, and that colors the motorist perception of how safe bicycling is. Bicyclists, because they've been told to stay out of the street, they hug the edges. The problem with hugging the edges is it makes you irrelevant. And it is the primary factor in over 90% of all motorist at-fault crashes, is that the bicyclist was irrelevant and the motorist made a mistake. Here's another example. I call this the inferiority-priority complex. This is bicyclists that hug the edge, and then when they come to a queue of cars, they scoot down the sidewalk. Now these guys can't even ride down. There's so little room in the lane, so they're scootering down with one foot unclipped down the curb. But what happens is they get to the front of the line, they've passed all of these cars that had already passed them, and all those cars are heading for the interstate. And so as you can see, this is a group that we're leading to the mayor's ride. We are on the road all by ourselves because nobody wants the lane that we're in. Everybody wants the lane that those two are in, and nobody can pass them. And they butted right to the front of the line, and now they're holding up an entire line of cars that are getting on the highway. So that's a little disruptive. Then the other thing they do is they invade pedestrian space. And in a downtown, this is my pet peeve. I don't want people riding past my table while I'm eating. And so in downtown Orlando, this is a problem. I've been almost hit by bicyclists many times on the sidewalk as a pedestrian. And then there is, I must face the enemy because if I turn my back on him, he will kill me. This guy has a completely inverted set of crash cause and effect in his brain. So the problem here is the inhibiting beliefs that these people take out onto the road. First of all, they don't believe that they're legitimate, and they don't believe that they belong there. They think they're at the mercy of other people. They have absolutely no control over their safety because they operate in such a way that they can't react to anything except to slam on the brakes. They think that motorists are careless and mean because they're operating in a way that puts them in constant conflict. And this is really important. When you want to promote bicycling in your community, these are the stories these people tell. This is the story you will hear from them. This is the story that infects every person in their life. And this is not a way to promote bicycling. This does not say, oh, I think I'll go do that too. That looks like fun. So now we take the bad beliefs and we overlay some bike lanes. So we want to make people feel safe. What could possibly go wrong there? He might spill his coffee. We want to attract bicyclists, but then in this case, this is a bike lane that is to the right of a right turn only lane. That is what we would call an attractive nuisance. Now we've got mandates, okay? So you have to accommodate bicyclists and pedestrians. So, we'll just stripe a bike lane right there through that interchange. I don't know about you, but I don't want to ride there. And then, of course, there's the belief that this guy is suddenly going to ride in the right direction because we gave him a bike lane. Well, you just gave that guy exactly what he wanted because the only thing he was afraid of was being hit head on. And they also don't get bicyclists off the sidewalk. So one of the problems with urban bike lanes in particular is that when you channelize traffic by vehicle type in a very complex environment, what you're doing is you are putting people in this horrible conflict zone. There's constant turning movements, cars entering the roadway, cars leaving the roadway, buses pulling over for bus stops, car doors opening. There's all these things that are happening on the edge. The edge is a very tumultuous and dangerous place, and it's really the last place that anybody should ride a bicycle in an urban environment. And so when you stripe that place off and tell the bicyclist to ride there, you're creating bad experiences, really. And you're not promoting safe behavior, because safe behavior is actually not to ride in that area. And what happens is, when the infrastructure is then not correcting behavior and sometimes making it worse, we've got these dysfunctional beliefs. We have infrastructure overlaid on it. We have poor bicyclist behavior, and we create a sense of entitlement because, of course, you belong there and not here in my space. And what we've done is we create a retributive cycle. So we're not actually solving the social problem. The problem that we have with the traditional approach that we've taken to cycling safety and promoting cycling is that we've taken this needs-based approach where we create an external input to meet a need. Well, think about the need that we're meeting. If you're meeting the need of a person who doesn't know where they should be riding, and they think they should be on the edge of the road, of course they think they want more space on the edge of the road because they don't recognize all the other conflicts. So if we don't understand the root causes of those needs and the root causes of the behavior, then we're going to have a hard time actually solving the core problem that drives the behavior. And another thing that we've done for a very long time is we have failed to recognize and embrace successful behaviors, because successful behaviors is where we're going to find the answer. So I want to show you successful behaviors, because successful cyclists are really, that's where the key is. That's where we're going to find our answer. What successful cyclists are in terms of change agent terminology is they are positive deviants. What a positive deviant is this somebody who is practicing uncommon behaviors that are different from everyone else. And those behaviors are vital behaviors, because those behaviors are the reason that they are being successful where others are struggling. And the key in this is that these people within the community have access to the same resources, they face the same challenges. Okay, so we find the vital behaviors for an American cyclist in an American city. We don't find the vital behaviors for an American cyclist in Copenhagen. I want to tell you a little story of how I became a positive deviant. I had been bicycling when I moved to Orlando in the mid-1980s. I began bicycling in earnest, and I bicycled for many years, some for transportation, commuting, some for just recreation. I explored the city on a bicycle. About 10 years ago, I rented office space on Edgewater Drive in College Park. And some of you may be familiar with Edgewater. It was a recipient of a Complete Streets treatment in 2001. And when I located my office there, I was experiencing different conditions than I had ridden in when I started to commute. It was a 10-mile commute. And what happened was the traditional behaviors that I was practicing, which are what everybody else does, were not working for me. I was experiencing a lot of conflicts. And in particular, on Edgewater Drive, I was experiencing the majority of my conflicts. And this road has a bike lane on it. And within the first year that I was commuting, I got hit by a car. And that didn't change the fact that I was, it didn't change my behavior that much, except that I became vigilant. So I started riding slower. I white-knuckled it up the bike lane. But every trip, I had some stupid motorist story, because I had conflicts all the time. And I remember the day that finally did it for me, I was riding home from work. I'm heading up past, I just left my office, I'm heading past the post office. A woman in a car darts out across my path. I have to hit my brakes. She flies up to the end of the queue and stops. And I continue riding up the bike lane. When I get to her position, she suddenly veers into the bike lane because she's tired of sitting in traffic. And she didn't even look. And so I had an air horn. I blasted the air horn at her. I swerved around her. I continued riding. I was a little rattled at that point. 2 blocks later, I'm riding about the speed of traffic, because I didn't know that if I was going the speed of traffic, I should get out of the bike lane. And I approached the next intersection, and a car began to cut across my path to make a right turn. So I screamed at the driver, and I swerved around him, and I continued down. And the next red light, I stopped at the red light, and at this point I'm rattled, because I've just in 10 seconds had 2 people try to kill me. And so I look at the car next to me, and I suddenly feel completely vulnerable. The guy has his window rolled down, and I look inside the window. I go, "You're not going to turn right here, are you?" Because I was just sure that was coming next, but he wasn't. I continued on my way home, and at that point, I had to solve this problem. So I got on the internet, like everyone does, and I started Googling magic paint, because I was sure that there was some color we could paint that bike lane that would make the motorist notice me in it. And my research actually led me to, I read a lot of studies about that. I read a lot of studies about bike lanes and critiques of studies. And my research led me to this odd group of, shall we say, grumpy old men who were claiming that they didn't have any problems on the roads. And I thought they were full of BS. And when they started explaining why they weren't having any problems, I was sure they were full of BS, because I knew that wasn't going to work in Orlando. But I decided I would try it. And so I started to try the behaviors that they were espousing. And, I went out into a more assertive position. I left the bike lane, and I waited, for something horrible to happen, because I was sure I was going to be punished. And lo and behold, shockingly, they were right. Nothing bad happened. In fact, nothing bad happened. Nothing bad has happened. And what ended up happening was the entire character of my riding changed. And all of a sudden, I found myself in a city full of smart motorists. All those people that were stupid before, they suddenly got a whole lot smarter. And my cycling got a whole lot easier, and the conflicts went away. And it was, the world changed. It was like being transported into some alternative universe. It was very, very strange. And so what that did for me was it returned bicycling to me. The joy and freedom of bicycling had become overridden by the frustration and bitterness that I had formed over these years of dealing with the conflicts. And so I decided that I was going to begin to look at what creates how these behaviors work, and how I could articulate them, and how I could teach them to other people so that they would have this experience. So the first thing that successful bicyclists do is they recognize crash causes and countermeasures. They avoid the common mistakes that bicyclists make, and they avoid the mistakes that motorists make. They're part of the system. They don't go down the queue. They wait in line. They stop at red lights. They follow the rules. They recognize patterns, and this is really, really important, and something that we teach in Cycling Savvy as a barrier removal to people who really don't want to ride on busy roads, but sometimes you have to connect the quiet streets. If I exploit the traffic light signals, I can get a really nasty this is Colonial Drive in Orlando. I can get a really nasty commercial arterial to myself for about a minute and a half, which is usually enough time to get from where I've come out to my destination or to the next network of quiet streets. It's amazing. They understand traffic flow. By understanding how traffic flows around diverges and converges and all these different road features, you can position yourself for minimal conflict to make things very, very easy. And you can't build a bike lane to do this. In fact, that is that bike lane from the other picture.
That's a misplaced bike lane.
It jumps right there. And the other thing they do is they plan ahead. Instead of muscling your way through traffic when you're 200 feet from the intersection, traffic travels in platoons. When there's a gap between platoons and you're 1,000 feet from the intersection, go into the lane that you want. And just use that lane. When the next platoon reaches you, they will flow naturally around you. Successful bicyclists communicate. Most bicyclists do not communicate. Most bicyclists just, I don't belong here, I'm not going to talk to anybody. So The important thing about communication is it establishes you as a human, and it confirms that things work, because when you communicate, motorists try to help you out. Almost all motorists will try to help you out when you communicate. And then the other part of communication is reward. We always reward drivers for helping us out, because not only is it a nice human thing to do, that's advocacy. Because when you make somebody feel good about themselves, they feel good about you, they feel good about bicyclists. And first, of course, we avoid the edges. A vital behavior for bicycling in a dense downtown urban area with lots of conflicts is to ride in the left tire track. We stay out in the lane of traffic. So the reason we're able to do this is that we have empowering beliefs. We believe we belong there. We believe we have every right to be there. We believe that we have control over our own safety, and that's incredibly empowering. We believe that most motorists are courteous and safe because that's our experience. That is my experience. I don't have conflicts, and I rarely experience incivility, and when I do, I don't even remember it 10 seconds later because it's just not a big deal. And this is the key right here, is that I can sell cycling to everybody because I'm completely enthusiastic about it, and I don't have stupid motorist stories anymore. I have really good experiences, and the bicycle is a wonderful way to get around. It's a wonderful way to connect with the community, and I just absolutely love it. And this is the case for most of our students. Our students go out there, and they're just, you know, and then their friends come and they take the class because they want to ride to the farmer's market too. So we want to choose a strategy that's going to help us realize our vision. The first thing that we should ask of any strategy, of anything that we're going to build, of anything that we're going to do, is does it support or undermine vital behaviors? Don't build things that undermine vital behaviors. And does it reinforce or inhibit, does it reinforce the inhibiting beliefs, or does it promote the empowering beliefs? We want to do things that promote empowering belief system, and we don't want to do things that feed that cultural belief of bicyclists not belonging on the road. So our traditional approach has been focused on getting more people to ride. And so as a result, what we've done is we've focused on what keeps people from riding. Well, they're scared. Yeah, they're scared because they don't know. They don't know how great it is. They don't know how safe it is. They don't know how much control they have. But when we focus on that symptom, and we ignore the root cause, and we cater to fear with infrastructure that's just designed to make them feel safe, and then we manufacture conflict on top of that, we start to create cognitive dissonance, and we feed that retributive cycle. And we haven't fixed the problem. We haven't fixed the culture. We've just sort of petted the culture. Nice culture. Here. So what I'd like to do is I would like to take us to a higher level goal of creating a culture that supports bicycling, because a culture that supports bicycling is going to produce more bicyclists. And so if we address the root causes, and first of all, the root causes are a software problem. So we need software solutions for our software problem. So education of bicyclists, education of motorists, education of the public in general. I mean, one thing we never talk about when we talk about Copenhagen and Netherlands is that they educate the heck out of their people. So promoting civility and community building. We do a lot of community building activities in Orlando. And then getting law enforcement support. It's incredibly important to get law enforcement support. And at the same time, we can focus on great progressive infrastructure solutions. There's a lot of things out. There's a lot of infrastructure out there that enhances trip quality without reinforcing bad beliefs and without reinforcing bad behaviors. When we do that, we're going to create a virtuous cycle, because we're going to kill that root cause. We're going to root out those bad beliefs, and through doing that, we will create our livable community where we are expected and respected. So the jump start for the virtuous cycle, my belief in creating the Cycling Savvy program was that we could jump start the virtuous cycle by focusing on the intersection of self-interest and influence potential. And the bicyclist himself is that intersection, because the bicyclist has a self-interest in having a quality experience, and the bicyclist influences the motorists that encounter him. So if it becomes normal to encounter a bicyclist who is operating as a normal vehicle driver, then it becomes normal for bicyclists to be normal vehicle drivers. And by virtue of that, you begin to change the cultural beliefs. And the bicyclists affect everybody in their life. So here's how we do it in Cycling Savvy. First of all, we studied influence strategies, and we're using proven influence strategies that have been used in many other intractable problems. One is we reframe everything. We reframe the roads. We reframe safety. We reframe the rules. We reframe your role on the road. We engage people. We get a lot of interaction from our students because if we engage people, then they're going to take ownership of this new information. We facilitate enactment. It's very important for people to enact new behaviors, and so we've created a class which facilitates enactment. We build success upon success. This is really important because we're taking people from basic riding all the way through to going through a scary interchange in our class. And we do that by carefully crafting successful experiences, because when you build success upon success, you create enthusiasm to try increasingly difficult things. And then we provide social reinforcement, because people will change, people will adopt deviant behavior if they feel that they are part of a tribe. So here's how it works. How we empowered Wei. This is Wei. She bought her bike a week before the class. This was our class that I taught in Dallas. And she had never ridden a bike with gears. She was scared to ride on a quiet street. And we took her through the most fearsome interchange that we could find in Dallas. So we start out in the classroom. Guided discovery. Get them to own the information. We use a lot of stories and metaphors and things to disrupt the brain, to get to suspend disbelief and shift perspective. We use vicarious modeling. This is very important. We use a lot of cyclist view video to show successful behavior and good results, because before a person will try something, they have to know, can I do it, and will it be worth it? We develop the skills that Wei needs in order to communicate with motorists on the road. We have a parking lot session that's 3 hours long where we go from basic balance to emergency handling. And then we hit the road and we start to build our progression. This is Wei on the first feature. A feature is an intersection that we send our students through one at a time. And she's come through the first one. She's like, okay, that worked. I think I can do this. Here's the second one. This is all right. This is working out. Here's the third one. We're starting to up the ante a little bit, and we've got her negotiating with low-speed traffic, because it's very easy to negotiate with low-speed traffic. She negotiates beautifully. She's absolutely thrilled with herself. We continue through a couple more features until we get to the ultimate challenge, which is Northwest Highway at the Central Expressway. This is what we send our novices through in Dallas. And here comes Wei, a girl who 10 hours before was afraid to ride on a quiet street. And here she comes down the hill. She's surrounded by cars. She is cool as a cucumber. She decides which one of those drivers she wants to negotiate with to get into that right lane. She does her negotiation. She slides in. She gives the driver a friendly wave, which I didn't quite catch on my camera. And here she comes, and she is absolutely tickled with herself. And when she went and looped around, and then the students were looping around and then going across the road, and when she queued up on the other side, I turned around and she goes like this. She was absolutely thrilled. And every one of these people had that shared experience with her, and this is really important. The shared experience creates community because it's powerful. It solidifies that new behavior. And so this is Wei, and this was Wei coming around the corner on her very last feature. That's an absolutely natural expression. She was so thrilled. But Wei has new beliefs now, and her new beliefs give her access to everywhere. She can go anywhere she wants. She doesn't need a facility to get there. Of course, there are lots of facilities that would be nice to have, but she doesn't need one. And she is now the jump starter of the virtuous cycle, because she believes that bicycling is safe and easy and enjoyable, and she believes that other drivers are courteous. And so she's got a very positive and empowering message to share with the world. And now, upon this solid foundation, we want to support Wei. We want to support her in the new behaviors that she's learned. And we need law reform. We need to work with law enforcement to support these behaviors. We need social marketing to share the broader message. We need driver's ed. We need community building activities. And I don't have enough time to go into all of those, but I want to talk a little bit about progressive facilities, because I want to talk about the facilities that support what we're doing. So first of all, our cities are full of the most wonderful bicycling asset there is, and that is the quiet street. We have thousands of miles of them. And so these streets are sometimes even preferable to multi-use trails because they're less crowded and they have more predictable behavior on them. So why don't we show people how to use these streets to get to the destinations they want to get to? Wayfinding is huge. It's inexpensive. It maximizes an asset that we already have. We can further maximize that asset by creating connectivity between those networks of streets. This particular trail is one that allows me to ride north through town, connecting one set of low-volume roads with another set of low-volume roads and avoid a U.S. highway. In a car, I have to use the U.S. highway. So these kind of things, connecting cul-de-sacs, sometimes it's just a matter of knocking down a wall somewhere. These are low-cost solutions to connect places that people prefer to ride. Here's one from Boulder. Creating access on one-way streets. If we decide that we want to keep one-way streets, then creating access for bicyclists on one-way streets gives them the ability to get to destinations without having to go all the way around the block or ride on the sidewalk, which is usually what they do. They have to be signalized properly. They don't necessarily make good through routes because the signal timing favors the traffic direction. But if you put sharrows in going with traffic and you put in a contraflow lane going against traffic, it increases access. Equality is very important. There's a lot of tools out there now with the bikes may use full lane signs. Again, we're using assets we already have with sharrows. You recognize that green area there from the vital behaviors diagram. This is what they did in Long Beach. They painted vital behavior right there on the ground. Sometimes it is appropriate to create extra space on the edge of the road for bicyclists. If I'm climbing a long, steep hill, I would prefer to have some space in which to do it. I don't necessarily always need the stripe there because the stripe sometimes creates a situation where that area gathers debris if it's not swept. But stripe or not, that pavement is useful. Now, on the other side, you can see that there's a sharrow on the downhill side. You don't ever want to put a bike lane on the downhill because you don't want people going 30 miles an hour in a bike lane. And then if we start to rethink our arterial roads where we have all these extra lanes, we can think about it in terms of the bike, bus, and right turn only, where you've provided a lane that only the buses and the bicyclists can use, except for when motorists need to make right turns. I also would think of it in terms of just expect bikes in the right lane. It doesn't necessarily have to be exclusive, but why don't we change the expectation? What we've done all over the place here in Florida is we've built these horrible 4-foot bike lanes on the edge of these arterial roads, and they're full of debris, and you've got trucks zooming past you. I would much rather have 10 feet than 4 feet, or 11 feet than 4 feet. So when we start thinking about repurposing some of this overbuilt suburban infrastructure, maybe that's something we could do with it. And then trails, progressive trails on their own right-of-way. This is the Katy Way Trail. It's a wonderful corridor trail. It takes people from the bedroom communities in the northeast side of town all the way into downtown. These are great where you can build them, but they cost $1 million a mile. So you need the right-of-way and the will to do it. But I love that trail. I use it all the time. And then the other thing we want to keep in mind when we're thinking about facilities is we need to have the versatility. I drive a cargo bike, much like the one in that photo. I also pull trailer often. Those vehicles are wider. They're wider than some bike lanes. And you put a vehicle like that on a narrow cycle track with two-way traffic, and you're going to have issues with space. The low slung vehicles, the trikes. I've had trikes now in 2 of my classes. These are great transportation vehicles, and they're perfectly safe to operate on the roadway. And I don't know anybody who wants to operate one in a bike lane. It's terrifying to be down that low and shoved off to the side because your sight lines are bad and you just don't have the visibility when you don't have that cushion of space around you. And then the other thing we need to think about is we've got now this whole industry of electric assist and electric bicycles coming out. And again, these things are now capable. A person with no athleticism whatsoever can ride 20 miles an hour on one of these things. And 20 miles an hour is way too fast for most of the bicycle-specific infrastructure. You don't want to do that in a bike lane. You don't want to do that on a cycle track. And then expandability is the other issue. Let's think about the fact that if we are going to increase the number of people out there, we want to have facilities that are expandable, that are big enough for everybody to use. And also, this is really important. When I'm going with my partner to dinner or to the grocery store or something, I want to ride side by side. I want to have a conversation. I don't want to be forced single file into a narrow space. So I always choose routes on which I can ride side by side with somebody, either 4-lane roads or residential roads or whatever. So when we bring it all together, this is my vision for the cyclist-friendly community. We have a cultural respect as a foundation. We have successful bicyclists, courteous motorists, and on top of that, we have this wonderful progressive infrastructure that makes our life, our cycling a higher quality. And the way we do that is by addressing successful behaviors for bicyclists and creating successful bicyclists. So.